Hi, leader. Welcome to the Smart Leader Hack. And we have somebody joining us today. We are, Lauren Powers, who is, I have to say, a favorite person of mine. And she has written a book that I think is really important for leaders to know about. And that is Listening Out Loud, Ridiculously Powerful Skills. I love this, for leading, life, and happifying. So, and she's also an author of other books as well, The Trouble with Thinking. She's a Udemy professor and has courses on Udemy. She knows her stuff. And she laughs, but it's true, and she's fun. So I wanted to start out, Lauren, thank you for being here and sharing with our people and our leaders out there about this. What I think listening is like, we all know about listening, but then people don't. So, why do you think people don't listen?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, let's just drop that bomb.
Let's just go right in there. Okay. Well, one of the reasons, as I thought about my own experience, because I was not a good listener, that's where I have to start with this thing. And I still can be a terrible, it happens, listener. And so I think there are so many reasons that we actually don't listen well. But where sort of for me was I had a military officer father, I was supposed to do what he said when he said it. And that's what listening was. You're supposed to listen, right? Which meant obedience. Yes, do it now. And I think that's what a lot of school is too. Don't talk to anybody else, read the thing, do the work, there's one right answer. So I think there's so many cultural experiences that have us think the way we prove our worth or our value is that we're an expert, or we have an idea, or we have a fix, or we have an opinion. And that's what our currency is in our interactions. And so many of us that's just what we do because that's what we've always done. And we think listening is actually this passive thing. So what I finally learned after, when I wanted to I just knew that my lecturing people was not changing anything, whether it was my husband or my people at work or whatever it was. It wasn't working. And so I was like, what needs to change? And the idea that listening, an engaged listening, would make a difference didn't occur to me. So I just don't think people think that's the answer. It's more, well, maybe I need to get smarter about my content, or maybe I need to be more forceful, or I need to be more confident.
I need to have more executive presence,
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Let me keep doing the same things, only slicker or more intensely or whatever it is. So for me, figuring out finally, going to coaches training, as we both have, that this kind of listening, which in the past we might have called active, was actually somewhat passive, and you just parrot back what people what we're talking about with listening out loud, it's engaged, it is interested. As a listener, you can actually facilitate the conversation. You can direct it by the questions you ask. So I think that's part of what people don't know, is that listening isn't just obeying or being quiet until it's your turn to talk. Interesting is improvisational. Did I say listening or interesting?
Interesting.
I said
it is, but it is.
It's the same thing.
Yes, it is actually the same thing. And I love what you're saying, which is, in a compliant format, I'm sitting here waiting for you to stop talking so then I can say what I want to say. And in improv, it's the only way to move the scene forward is to engage and be present and say something back that helps move the ball down the court.
Right.
Otherwise,
And
we're
it's,
just waiting,
yes. And that's why I was terrible at improv, was, because I'm trying to be right about what I say. But in improv, you're just supposed to say yes. And now we don't necessarily always do that in listening, but that's the spirit of it.
Yeah.
Instead of I have to convince you of my point of view,
Yes.
listening is accepting, getting the other person's experience, what's their story, why do they think the way they do, not me telling you what you should be doing.
Yeah.
So it's so different. And the reason I wanted to write the book was I think we're all missing out on a lot of richness of living and being in relationship when we think that it's just a transaction of expertise back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm hearing in it is this, what I think of as it's a dialectic. It's something that is a synergistic thing versus two people sitting here in their own sphere. There's something that's connected, and it's a circle. And
nice. Yeah.
And yeah, we are missing out. And I think what I notice in my work and what I talk a lot about in Smart Leader Hacks and so forth is that missing piece around engagement. And what you're talking about here is both people are engaged, leaning in, yes, anding, or with the spirit of curiosity and furthering the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you, through all your travels with working with people and being with people, what you would say is the funniest thing about listening or not listening that you can share.
Well, one of the funny things, I mean, there's so many ways that we, misunderstand or mishear, that has some funny stories in it. But one of the things you just reminded me of was in one of the courses I was teaching around listening, somebody, he raised his hand, he's like, yeah, I can become a better listener, but how do I tell other people how much they stink at listening?
Oh yeah.
And I was like, yep, that's what we want, is other people are at fault. Other people are to blame because they're jerks or they don't listen or whatever it is. And that is part of the irony here of, because we think of listening as passive, we don't think it has any power or influence or is going to get us what we want. So yeah, I could be a good listener, but it's the other people that really need to be fixed.
They need to listen to me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so that's in just the same thing, different day.
Yeah. It makes me think of my husband and I joke about, everyone is narcissistic in their own way, but we can have this dueling narcissism. Well, if you would just stop, he's better at listening, I could be better. Well, if you were better, I could be better, and now we're doing that thing.
I know.
Just stopping and going, yeah, I could be better. How could
I? My husband and I are watching this TV show. What is it called? Class of 2007. And it's just this nutty comedy. And what happens in every episode is they start blaming. Well, if you hadn't, and it just depends on how far back we go that it's somebody else's fault for what they did wrong. No one, and so that's in some ways the essence of comedy, Marla, is, well, it wasn't me. Nobody told me. It was you.
Yeah.
When actually there's no way to figure out who did what that has brought us to here now.
Yeah. And then my husband will say to me, well, we didn't have a video camera. So we cannot argue data at this point. So what do you want now?
Yeah, exactly. That's, he's good. He's good. Your husband.
He's definitely got the Aikido thing going.
Aikido, the energy's coming at me.
Oh, and there she goes. I just like passed over that.
Fly out the window.
Yeah, but I see that with my clients, the blame game, when it's like friends.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't. Well, I didn't. Well, okay, we can't argue that because do
Right.
you have a video camera? No? Okay.
Well, and you're pointing to something too that we really, as a society and as a culture, we're saying, we'll prove it. And what we're actually, for particularly in DE&I, prove that that was a microaggression or whatever it is that we're talking about. And it's like, you know what? The relationship will die if you keep saying you got to prove it. Well, there wasn't a video camera, so there's no proof, and so it didn't happen. No, no, we're all different, and everything we experience is different. And that's, if we can make it fascinating instead of irritating,
Yeah. Yeah.
that somebody else has a different experience is completely logical, given that we are different people. And so to be able to listen, I think the other thing that stops people from listening and saying back what they're hearing and appreciating somebody else's experience is they think it means they're saying, you're right,
Yeah.
and I'm wrong. I did something bad, or that other person did something bad, and I'm not gonna sign up for that. But that's a collapsed interpretation.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Listening does not mean you agree.
Yeah.
Accepting what that other person has to say and get it creates understanding and trust and a way forward. Yeah. That's tough to get.
And then saying, I'm sorry for anything I might have done.
That's right.
That may have caused suffering. Again, it's like, I mean, we're talking about good communication, not listening, but listening is the gateway.
Yeah.
Gateway skill. Yeah, it is the gateway. For sure. For sure. For sure. It's interesting that you're talking about this as being the funniest thing. It's like, it's kind of like it's the thing about humans that they don't want to own their mistakes or their transgressions. They just want to do that. Well, if it wasn't for you, and they wish that was not so the case, and people could just disarm each other by going, oh wow, that sounds like it sucked, I'm so sorry for any part I had to play in that. Right. It's not my intention. And
yes,
there's very much, I mean, we're just, what I noticed, and I think you would say the same thing, so many of the skills of good human beingness, yes, listening is the gateway, and then there's all these other things, whether it's empathy or or curiosity or unattachment, all the things that go into greatness. But if you aren't able to take in, really listen, you're not going to get to all those other great human traits. And I'm wondering if I know in our work, we often will say, well, what does that cost you to be that way, do that thing? And I'm wondering, what do you think the cost is? I mean, this is more like you're imagining cost in the world to people that don't listen.
It's clear. It's actually clear, what the cost is. Because, some of the research now about people wanting to have sort of lives of meaning, lives of contribution, and what makes you live a long time, a long, healthy life, social connection. And in this era of when it seems like we are socially connected, because we've got all this information coming at us all the time, and everybody can write whatever they want on social media. It's like, oh no, that's not the kind of connect. That's not sort of quality connection. So I really like to think about, that whole external noise machine. In some ways, do whatever you want out there, but with the people that you work with every day at work, in your life, in your family, in your chosen people, that's who I'm interested in. Each of us being able to have a connected, engaged, enjoying, unfolding, to use a California word, experience of the people in our lives. And It doesn't mean we have to be all friends, like the people that you work with or that you lead, but that there is a caring as a human being. What is your experience and what are your ideas and what matters to you?
Yeah.
So really the underlying is we are in this together as human animals who love being in relationship. And how can we do that in a way that is deeper than just telling each other what to do?
Yeah.
And I see this with parents, with teachers, with principals, with people in government, with people in nonprofit. It's everywhere that we're in this habit of talking at each other, thinking, oh, it will take too much time to listen. So efficiency is another one of those unwritten rules. We got to go. We got to go. We don't have time. It's going to take too long.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing is it costs us our life, because it is, like you're saying, pointing to longevity. Relationships are definitely pointing to longevity, but it also costs us quality of life.
Yes.
In terms of the kinds of relationships we have. And I think why I think your book is so timely is that in this world where we're, like you're saying, having these communications that seemingly seem connected, but I thought there was a great article in The Atlantic many years ago that said, why do I feel so lonely? And people are in this very socially connected place, supposedly, but yet starving for real interaction.
Yes.
And so you're giving the antidote to
yes, and
missing,
and particularly after COVID, when you couldn't even get with your loves, your family, or or with the people you work with, or any and so. And one of the ways you have to work with remote teams is you have to do more of what you need to do in person to have it work. So I've noticed for myself that I am out of practice of being in person, with more than like two people at a time. And how do you do a whole conversation and include people and listen? I mean, it's skill-based. It really, and it's absolutely learnable. It's absolutely doable. And what I talk about in my book is, first of all, the mindsets around having to be right, having to be efficient, get to the point, all this stuff that isn't actually what listening or deepening understanding, or what we talk about in coaching is deepening learning. So you're facilitating a conversation where you're both learning.
Yeah.
It's so much more interesting.
Yeah.
So, and as a leader, I would add, there's a whole, you and I have a number of different leadership models that we appreciate. And one that I love has achieving the task and engaging in relationship as equally important. Equally
weighted. The how. That's how I see it, is the what and the how, the task we got to do and how we're going to do it together.
Right. Exactly right.
Most important. No, but this is like, actually, this thing's way down here somewhere in most organizations. Do this, the what's got to get.
Yeah.
And that's why we stop listening. That's a perfect example of, like, I'll have to tell on myself. You can tell me how I could have been better. Being in a startup, there's a lot of stuff going on for me as the founder all the time. And I was working with somebody that is going to be doing an event with us. And we were in the middle of trying to discuss how the marketing for the event went. And I went, can I just ask a question? I know that I have a lot of things flying around, because in my mind, I'm like, have we scheduled this event yet? Is it actually happening? Or are we just still talking about it? But this was over a period of time. We were now in a meeting. I'm like, we have already set up the event, right? And bless the woman's heart, we had it scheduled for May 17th. And I'm like, okay, so somewhere along the way, I was not there for that moment of, here's when we're doing it, let's schedule it, Now, it could be, I didn't check this out, that my, my admin went off and scheduled with her.
Yeah.
But still, I should have known. And that's because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, the body
Right.
was there. The
Right.
mind was God only knows where, which is
You
how,
might have even been nodding.
well, that's the scary thing, right? We think people are listening because their body's there. What could I have done? What? Give me your sage advice about how could I listen better in the speed of startup?
Well, let's see. Well, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because there might have been checking in with each other. Like, how does that work for you? As far as she's sort of contracting with you. And if she didn't hear a or something from you, then that might be her making sure her communication is getting through. Now, I also know it's easy to forget things. This is one of you might have been there. You might have said, oh yeah, May 17th works great. And you might have really thought that. Mm-hmm. And then it's gone. And so there's a way in which this listening mm-hmm. has to include some unattachment or grace or room for misremembering or other it's like, so you heard, and was I there? Because I'm thinking I wasn't, and so if there's something, mistake like that happens,
yeah,
it is really, so now, it's like your husband says, so now what?
Yeah, now I know. Now. I do know now.
I know now.
It's stuck in there. And that's really, that the forgetting thing and also the grace thing. It's like, yes, you get to just say, oh, okay. And then not give yourself a hard time
exactly
about it.
Right.
Because that also perpetuates lack of listening. Because now I'm in my head going, oh God, I'm such a piece of crap because I didn't remember. And oh my God, what are you doing? And how can you run?
I know this is, the blame thing. Either I'm wrong or she's wrong or everybody's
Somebody's got to be
wrong.
That's why we had a cat, because the cat was always wrong. The cat for anything that went wrong. It's the cat's always. I'm just kidding.
That's what pets are for. The make wrong cat.
Yeah. No, it's Rocket's fault. Well, so are there any last? Like, what is the thing if somebody didn't read your book, but you want them to have this thing. Yeah. What's the one thing you want people to know about listening?
For me, for myself, and for the courses that I lead, what I find strikes people the most is that we go through life listening to ourselves. There's what we call it is level 1 listening, or the me channel. Here's what I think about your idea. Here's what I think about what you're wearing. Here's what I think about myself. Here's what I think about that dinner. It's I, me, I got to get some eggs on the way home. I wish I had a different car. Yeah. And so when anyone else is speaking, that's usually where we are. I'm judging, I'm liking, I'm not liking, I'm excited, I'm not excited, from my perspective. And there's absolutely, you have to have that in life, to be able to understand what they're saying to you. In order to interpret, to have that filter. So what we think is that's all there is to listening, is from my point of view. And what's wanted is for me to give my opinion or what I think about this.
Right.
And actually, no, what listening is turning down the level 1 on the me channel.
The me channel.
And actually trying to turn up the volume on level 2 listening, or the you channel, or their channel. Mm-hmm. So you're like, okay, let me just let go of a lot of my judgments, and I went to Italy too, or here's what happened for me. Nope. Don't pull it back to me. But so what happened for them? Really try to get over on their side and say, how can I understand their perspective, their experience, what happened for them? That's what makes it interesting. It's like a movie. what happened? And then this, and then you felt that. And how was that? And how did you link that up? And what happened next? And now where are you? And so the difference between level 1, my listening to myself, and then being able to put myself over there with level 2 is I think the first mental distinction or mindset that needs to happen to help be able to do the behavior.
Yeah.
Listening more deeply.
Yes. Thank you for that. I think that's just so powerful and such an important distinction that you're making around the me channel and the you channel.
Yeah.
And so, listeners, leaders, please turn down the you channel just a little. You can turn it back up later, but turn it down when you're with the people you lead, with your family, with your community, and turn up the you channel.